Welcome to Secrets from the Scene, a show for local musicians who want to improve their music, grow their audience, and learn about Minnesota's music scene. If you're interested in talking about all things music related and meeting interesting people from our local community, you're in the right place. Hey everyone, welcome back to Secrets from the Scene. My name is Stephen Helvig and I'm your host. Today's guest probably doesn't need much of an introduction if you're from Minnesota, especially it's Dessa. She's a writer, a singer, a rapper, a speaker, a podcaster, and honestly, one of the Twin Cities' most respected and versatile voices. I think her work has helped to shape the local scene and influence, obviously, a lot more beyond just locally. She started in the legendary Doomtree collective, has done everything from collaborating with the Minnesota Orchestra to contributing to the Hamilton Mixtape, having an essay or a memoir published with the Penguin Random House, toured internationally, and much more. But I want to keep this conversation to being more than just like greatest hits of Dessa, because that could be the whole episode. I want to talk about building a creative career that lasts, about how to keep your own voice while you expand disciplines and do different things, how to collaborate effectively within that, how to stay grounded as your work keeps changing. And so if you're a local artist struggling with multiple skills or different creative outlets, I'm hoping that this conversation will, strike a chord. But first, for anybody that's maybe not as familiar with the depth and breadth of Dessa's resume up to this point, I'm going to read her bio because I think that'll help fill in any gaps. Singer, rapper, and writer Dessa has made a career of bucking genres and defying expectations. Her resume as a musician includes performances at Lollapalooza and Glastonbury, co-compositions for 100 Voice Choir, performances with the Minnesota Orchestra, and top 200 entries on the Billboard charts. She contributed to the #1 album, the Hamilton Mixtape, and the Ruth Bader Ginsburg documentary. Her track, Congratulations, has notched over 27 million streams. As a writer, she's been published by the New York Times and National Geographic Traveler, broadcast by Minnesota Public Radio, and published a memoir and essays, My Own Devices 2018, in addition to 2 literary collections. As a speaker, Dessa has delivered keynote speeches and presentations on art, science, and entrepreneurship, guest lectures at universities and colleges across the U.S., and a TED Talk about her science experiment on how to fall out of love. She also hosted 2 seasons of Deeply Human, a radio program created by the BBC and American Public Media. Dessa has been covered by Pitchfork, Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, amongst others, and the LA Times says she sounds like no one else. NPR's All Songs Considered called her a national treasure. On the stage and on the page, Dessa's style is defined by ferocity, wit, tenderness, and candor. Please welcome Dessa.
Desperate times call for desperate pleasures. Some legitimate headlines, mostly cries for attention. The camera speeds, copy ready to read. Ought to be a good night. Well, item 3, 2, fuck man, busted on a hot 'cause it's a hurricane party. End days every other Wednesday. Live girls dance, dead men float. A hurricane party, gold dust, sex and Bacardi. DJ says don't hold back because the water won't.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I've obviously known of your career for quite a long time, as I'm sure most local artists are familiar. But, doing research for this, I was like, oh, wow, there's still a lot more there that I was just like blown away by. So as I'm doing research, I see that you were a philosophy major and then a technical writer as one of your first jobs.
Yeah.
And then you're in Doomtree.
Yes. Just a straight professional trajectory.
Yeah, exactly. But, those are your earliest things that are all happening like on a professional level.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it kind of totally makes sense that you then are also a writer, an artist, you know what I mean? Like, and a speaker on these different subjects. Did you realize early on that your career was going to be multidisciplinary?
No, gosh. I mean, I don't even think we had like the kind of concept of a multidisciplinary artist, or I wasn't aware of it, I should say, when I was coming up, you know? I knew that there, you know, in black and white movies, there were people who were like really good singers and really good dancers. And on, I don't know, Broadway, you had to be able to like, or in an opera, I don't know, you had to be able to act and sing. But that never seemed to me, you know, anywhere near what I was headed. I think I loved words since I was really little, so I thought maybe the natural fit would be a writer. I wasn't as involved in performance of any variety when I was a kid. So to me, writing seemed like that's probably where I was headed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was your first job, so that made sense.
But you know, it's weird because it wasn't, okay, so I wanted to be like a creative writer. I wanted to write poem, etc.
Yep.
And I really liked the genre of creative nonfiction. But the technical writer thing for me was very much a way to finance like a career in the arts. Because I think the standard job, which is really well suited to being an artist, is being a bartender or being a server, you know? And so I lied on a resume to Chino Latino, a now defunct restaurant in uptown Minneapolis.
Rest in peace.
R.I.P. Or not. Complicated place. But I said I'd had a job as a waitress in Staten Island, which I had not had. And I was just a really bad waitress. I was really friendly with people. You know, I dug chatting at tables. But that ability to I mean, you really do have like multiple clocks in your head running for everything. Like that table needs water. That table is going to need a drop of the dessert menus. That table's been waiting on their check. I can tell that guy's thirsty because he's going like this all day. And I just sucked at it. And so I wanted a different job that still had a high hourly. And my dad suggested actually try technical writing. And so for me, I dug it, but it wasn't like this is what I want to be when I grew up. It was like I could earn solid here and then go on tour when I get the offer.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So as you've had all of these different sort of, you know, balls in the air, have you felt the pressure to focus on more of one thing? Or has it always sort of been like, this more is more, this is great?
I've definitely felt the pressure. And I think I want to be careful about not being cartoonish about it, because I think it can be easy to like, in any artist's story, to cast oneself as wind blown on a hill, like leaning in, right, to all your haters. And I think even people who really loved me or supported my career encouraged me to focus, because they were like, yo, all this is real hard. Like, it's hard to be a musician. It's hard to be a writer.
They're not wrong.
They're not. And it was interesting. I didn't see it at the time because part of me was thinking, dude, it's all language arts. Like, if I can make a good book and then make a good, or an essay or whatever, you know, and then make a good record, like, I think people would be down. But I had a manager at the time, Doug, awesome dude, totally down, super smart, you know, nothing but respect. And who I think accurately, when he was like, dude, maybe focus on music for a while, he identified the fact that the people with whom you build your musical career, let's say you're lucky enough to get like a banging booking agent and you're working with a distributor everyone's excited. They don't participate in any of that wins necessarily in the literary world, which is also to say they don't get paid. So from their perspective, you know, one of the questions that I got really commonly on my recent record was, oh, I thought, so you haven't retired? Like, mother, I have been hella not retired. But it had been 5 years since a full length. It's been so long since my last book. So from my perspective, I'm really busy. But from the people who are just looking, you know, oh, I like her as a writer or I like her as a musician, I'm very slow.
Right.
And that's, of course, frustrating. And it's easy for me to, you know, feel sorry for. But that's also legit. Like, you know, the best practice is what? You work with, obviously, innumerable bands, but I think when I was coming up, it was like it should be a couple of years between records, and then it was 18 months between records, and now it's just sort of like a song every Tuesday morning.
Right. Yeah, nonstop. You should just be putting out something all the time.
If your mouth is open, you should be singing a new song, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't hit any of those marks. I fall down on all of them because in any one given lane, I'm working really slowly. Whereas, of course, the way I'm living it is all the lanes at one time.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like there's been plenty of outside pressure, but what about the inside pressure? Like, what are you wanting
I want
to...
all of it. No, I think you and I were talking right before we pressed record about that feeling that looks like this. Oh, that's one of the biggest compensation packages of this job. And you don't get dental. So it's really important when possible to like keep the wonder segment of your portfolio.
Yeah, the magic has to be there.
Because else let's be CPAs or something. Do you know what I mean?
There's way easier ways to make money.
Exactly. So for me, the idea of actively snuffing out my curiosity so that I can be an artist is an obvious contradiction in terms. Like, and if my curiosity takes me into a field that isn't the one that I'm currently supposed to be mining, it isn't the field that I'm supposed to be watering, curiosity takes, and fascination and enthusiasm for me. I try to design a life where those take precedent. How do I always know? Sometimes you're just late on an assignment. I don't want to let people down. And I said I'd do something so well. But I've written it down a lot because I want to call myself on my own bullshit that like curiosity and enthusiasm are a part of this job. They are the best part of this job. So you have to try to remember to take them as seriously as you do deadlines, as you do money, as you do everything else. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's very easy, especially when you've been at it for a while, to let those kind of wither on the vine.
Total anything, or I shouldn't say that. For me, and I've been surprised too, like knowing now artists of a lot of disciplines who've been at it for a long time, we do habituate. You know, first time you try something, the first time it feels different. It feels different. And so trying to change enough so that I am not habituated to the wonder of any given form, you know, whether that's like, okay, what is it like to write an audio play, or what's it like to try some weird performance art? Okay, well now I'm feeling, I'm on the wire again. You know, I'm plugged in. I've got fingers in the sockets because this is new. Failure is entirely possible. And I'm excited because I don't know what the hell is going on. That feels good to me. So that's been a priority. Yeah.
So it's kind of like part of your creative process to seek out new experiences and new stuff in general?
I think so, but also it's like I don't want to give myself too much credit. I think also there is I think a lot of artists, I'm sure not universally, but I vacillate between like insufferable conceit and self-loathing. And there's not too much time in the middle.
Yeah.
Like, nailed this. I'm awesome. Like, why do I even try? And so for me, when I'm entering into a form where I don't really know the conventions yet, or I've just been told what the conventions are, and I think I want to break that rule. Like, I like, as a reader and I don't want to say consumer, but as a consumer of art, I like when people surprise me. Like the first time I watched Fleabag, I was like, this is nasty as hell for a BBC production. And also just like the quick cuts, the strange, I'm a big fan, but like, I love being surprised and disoriented by mastery of craft. And so for me, trying to find a new form where I think I could tunnel under that wall because I haven't been formally trained here. So some of the convention of technique isn't quite as ingrained. That's exciting for me. Yeah.
Yeah. What about like, you know, as you think about all of these things starting, how did location play into that? How has Minneapolis affected your genre or your curiosities or the different things you've attempted over the years?
I think generally I struggle with this question a little bit because it's so difficult for any of us to imagine, for most of us who've grown up in one place, to imagine what it would have been like in another place. The counterfactual is just hard to run. Like, how has English shaped your cognition? Shit, I don't know. Like, I can't get out of my own cognition to evaluate it, you know? That said, I think when I started touring, realizing like, oh, not every city is quite as interested in a mixed bill, meaning you've got a lot of genres on one night, you know, bluegrass to rap to metal. And Minneapolis does that a lot. I remember being on a stage in Chicago and my crewmate Cecil Otter ducking a beer can, and we were realizing this isn't working as well. I don't think this is working as well here. That, and then I think DIY, like the fact that we are outside the purview and scope jurisdictions of most big labels means that the default was like, just make it. Just burn your own CDs, or just now, you know, upload your own songs to SoundCloud and find a way to get it on Spotify, screen print your own t-shirts to find a friend who can, take your own pictures against the wall, write your own bio. The one you read, which was so glowing, it's because I wrote it, you know? Like, yeah, I think the presumption that you'd hire somebody to do the work of being an artist is not in play here in the way that it might be in LA where you need permission. You need to someone has to say you're good and I'll sign you. And now you can be a touring artist. Whereas here it was just sort of like climb your way to the top of the dirt mountain.
Sure.
What do you think?
I think your point that it's hard to run the counterfactual makes complete sense. You would never really know. But I'd agree. I think that once you've met some people from outside the city, you realize that there is a very strong DIY ethic here. And also, I think the collaboration is fairly good. I think it can always be better.
I agree.
But, when I look at, because it's not like it works for everybody. There's some people out there, I'm sure, that feel still siloed off and not as, but you can look at things like Doomtree as being really probably helpful to have that crew around you when you got started, right?
Understatement. Yeah. I should do the work of like, Doomtree also had models for that. Or you know what I mean? Like whether it's the Micronauts or Interlock or Rhyme Sayers, like labels existed or crews existed that were making awesome stuff first and foremost. But second, like this idea of resource sharing. We'd never call it that. I mean, this is all like, to introduce the academia, into the world of the practitioner, but it's all, learning how to count bars. Like I didn't know what a bar was after I was writing verses. I didn't know that like 28 bars might not be a great length for a verse. Right.
Yeah.
That was all kind of just peer-to-peer stuff. And as we were developing then, like a small business, I remember getting the counsel to like, hey, being in Best Buy at that time or Target, any physical retailer at that time, it looked cool because you felt legit. Mm-hmm. Also, like your margins really suck. You might be making more money to just sell it out the back of your car or into,
sure.
So, you know what I mean? So getting that sort of counseling, like business counseling,
business and art counseling, yeah,
both, yeah, that was a big deal. But I think also, broken record because I say this a lot, but I think we do ourselves generally a disservice to imagine that the rules of the marketplace as envisioned by, a first-year economics textbook apply the same way to us. Like my biggest competitor isn't the band next door. My biggest competitor is laundry. Like I need to get half an hour of your time,
Right.
Will you listen to it? Will you go out to a show instead of staying in and watching Netflix? It's not another band, dude.
Yeah.
That's not who I'm competing against. And if you absolutely love two records that came out in the same month, I bet you could scrape together another $20 to go to both concerts.
Right.
So,
and enough time to listen to both of them.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think musicians in most scenarios, at least in independent world, are much better advocates than they are direct competition to one another. In the beginning, I would make press lists to send. I looked up how to do a press release or someone helped me figure out how. And then I would write our press releases and send them out to the press list I'd maintained. And then realized that press list, which took, a bunch of hours to create, that could be capital when none of us had money. I could say, hey, I'll trade you my press list for photos or I'll trade you my press list for. So I think there's so much like really effective bartering to be done. No money need change hands in the indie world. Yeah.
And it's such a great way to get your career started. Whether it's a collective like Doomtree or not something as organized, right? Where it's just people that you know and your community, like lean into that as much as you can and try to, what are you good at? What is somebody else good at? Trade. It's
and
huge.
lift all boats, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's get the tide in. Even now, I mean, to me, that doesn't feel like a relic of only the beginning of my career. I was on the phone or chatting with my manager yesterday about a tour routing that I was trying to do. Mm-hmm. I was like, if I could get these 3 indie bands together, we could all trade fans. If we could all hit all of our home markets. So I would headline in Minneapolis. This other woman I'm hoping to romance onto this bill, she would headline in Detroit. And this other guy who's from Cincinnati, then we could all build in the home markets of the others by a rotating, kind of lineup as we go. Mm-hmm. And that was just, first day essentially of learning how to tour as an indie artist. That lesson to me has still held.
Yeah. All right. Well, what about misunderstandings of being in a creative collective like Doomtree? What do people think it's going to be like? And then what is it really like?
I think that one of the things that Did you ever see that Riz Ahmed movie? God, Sound of Silence, Sound of Music. No, it's really not the Sound of Music. Anyway, he's in a band that's touring, and I think they're having great shows, and they're on the cover of like a Spin type magazine, right? And I remember thinking this movie was made by someone who really toured and knows this world, because that first time you see yourself on the cover of something, it feels like, and it looks like to the outside world, you're made.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
You are so broke. You are still, I mean, God, the first time one of the guys in Doomtree was on the cover of something, we were sleeping like on the floor on mattresses in like a house that should be condemned. Like, it was so gritty and so grimy. So I think the delta of like how glamorous or even just comfortable this life is from the outside is really deceptive. Like, you can get good looks before you can make rent. That's a big one.
Almost always, right? Where
I think so. Yeah.
There's like a lag time between things look like they're popping off and then there's actually money coming in.
Also, I think sometimes increasingly as our ability to monetize our efforts gets more and more tenuous, to me, it's starting to feel like a pyramid scheme. I don't know if it's just a lag time is like, hey, that looks really cool and sexy, and that might not bring money in. Do you know what I mean? It might never be coming in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
And also, just to say it out loud, money isn't everything, but making sure that you've got like a safe, secure place to sleep and a reasonable expectation that you can take care of yourself after you can't tour hard. That is important. So it's not just about acquisition for its own sake. It's about building like a safe, secure life.
Yeah.
But
for anybody that's, thinking to themselves like, I need to find my crew, like any tips on how to go about finding healthy partnerships?
Totally. I think first and foremost, I do like guest lecturing a lot at an undergraduate level. And I think a lot of times, for totally understandable reasons, people are so focused on what they need that it can sort of eclipse the natural partner to that question, which is, what can I offer
Right.
others need? So to always think about, in this partnership, even if it only lasts for this hour, right? I want to try to get to a mutual win. Okay, we're in Minnesota in a subterranean podcasting studio that is freaking awesome. But after this is published, I want to make sure like I'm a good partner with you in promoting it. I want to make sure that I'm grateful for the time here to talk about my career. This is going to help when I put out new music in a few months, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, great. I'll have a clip to share. To be mindful of when you're asking for something, to try to structure that mutual benefit by saying, hey, what do you want? And what can I help you with? I think that those are the relationships that are really strong. Also, go to shows. Like, to meet people, it can be weird, it can be awkward, but like, go to small shows at coffee shops if that's where you're at. Go to medium club size shows, and then hang out afterwards at the merch table and just like put yourself out there, have that low key awkward conversation a lot. And even if they don't take you up on it, some will. Hey, I really liked your show. That third song, the guitar in it is crazy. Which song is that from? I want to make sure to check it out. Okay, cool. My name is blah blah blah, and I'm gonna be. If you ever want to check it out, man, I'd love to put you on the list. But like, to be appreciated, a great place to start is to appreciate.
100%. Look at what you have to offer. We had a recent podcast episode with Ryan Smith, the guitarist in Soul Asylum and plenty of other groups. Yeah. And, that was kind of I think one of the big takeaways of that episode is it's just like, when you show up to do your thing, give everything you've got and make sure that you're leaving that impression that, that was above expectations. They gave more than they take. And that's exactly what that is. And then, yes, also show up and, just be a good person and try to meet people.
And I have to say that I had under-indexed that at the beginning.
I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, because I had assumed, astronaut, professional ballerina, musician, NFL star. There's just so many people who want these few jobs, as I'm imagining in my teenage self. You have to be the top fraction of the top 1% to even stand a chance. And is competitive? Yes. But also, like, my mother had a way better singing voice than me. I was the least good female singer at my address, and so I was delightfully, I was happily surprised by the fact that like showing up on time in a condition that could pass for sober and nice. Made such a difference. I am really confident that I've gotten gigs by people who are not absolutely in love with my music, who are like, you know what, she's cool. I have definitely given, when I'm looking for openers or whatever, like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool, but you know what, they are so rad and they're so generous and they're funny, and God, they brought cookies last time. That adds up. Like, your reputation your personality is so much a part of your reputation.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, well, you've released, obviously, music and essays and like partnerships for bourbon and lipstick and all kinds of different opportunities, all kinds of different collaborations with different brands. How do you decide what to do next? Or is it a matter of kind of what we're saying, like just opportunities coming to you?
I think it's more the latter than the former. So often I'll have a big dream that I'm working on, but I used to like sit down at a bar. I live halftime in New York.
Okay.
I used to sit down at a bar in New York and like I would write a 2-year plan because I thought that was what professional, responsible people did, and like throw them out 8 months later because something unanticipated, usually good, had happened. Like, okay, here's my long-term plan. And then I got a call for the Hamilton Mixtape. And now I'm going to do whatever the hell that takes to make good,
Right.
So for me, the way that I'll sometimes describe it is it's less like hunting and more like trapping. You put out a lot of feelers, and you see what's popping instead of like, I'm going to go run down that single antelope in the distance.
Have you had to force something like that? Have you had to run that down?
I think for me, yes. The book that you mentioned was like, I wanted to write a book since I'd wanted to be published like that for like 17 years, 18 years.
Oh, wow.
I have been submitting to the New Yorker or looking up magazines and submitting in what used to be called SASSIes, a self-addressed envelope. I don't know, sealed envelope. So it was like, you'd send in your essay to a fancy magazine, and it would include in the envelope in your submission like a way for them to mail you essentially your rejection notice. And I did that for years without really any traction. Yeah, that was a big deal for me. And you and I were also talking about like, what is burnout? For me, the day that I self-published my first little collection of stories, I fell in love with music again because I thought I had become so bitter. Mm-hmm. I was mad. I was frustrated that like I wanted to write an essay and I can't fit it in this 3-minute song. Yeah, because it's a fucking rap song. You know what I mean?
Right.
And as soon as I had that essay out in another one, I could just love rapping again because I wasn't trying to ask it to be something it wasn't.
Do you think writing has been like the essential non-musical? Well, I guess it is musical in some ways, but what I'm getting at is, of all of your skills, which one has improved the music the most?
Okay, so for me, I would perceive that I entered music as a linguist. So if I were in a different era, I'd be the librettist. I would just be the word person, and someone else would have probably come in to do melody too. Mm-hmm. Whereas, with rap, it's such a word-driven field. And it's like glasses up your nose word-driven. It's like, how many double entendres and I know the alliteration on the third. I mean, it is, it's nerdy in some respect. I think that as time has gone, I've become more involved in all of the other parts of music making. So I've always loved writing melodies, but now like I'm, my next project, like I made the beats and then had huge help from, Andy Thompson and Laserbeak, longtime collaborators, to like make them better. But yeah, getting into the production a little bit more. I'm a horrible pianist still, like a feral 8-year-old, but yeah, I think I've slowly become better at production.
And I think everybody now, with the way that technology has happened, it's now part of just being a musician, is you probably need some level of production under your belt. Even
if it's just like demoing on GarageBand, right? Okay, what is it to add reverb? What is it to add delay? In the same way that I think everybody who's a musician also is a low-key like marketing and advertising professional.
Not even low-key anymore.
Highest of all possible keys. Yeah.
You found ways to support yourself through licensing and partnerships, touring, a lot of different income streams. What has been one that has been the most surprising that you were like, oh, that was better than I thought it would be in terms of actual money?
I've never thought about that question. So I would say that like almost every artist probably who's operating in the past, like let's say 15 years steady, I think the recorded music is less and less a part of your income stream. It's necessary but insufficient. So you have to record the record for people to fall in love with it so that you can make money singing it live usually. Or if you have, I don't make music that's good for car commercials or for like great licensing because it just has too many fucking words in it. So licensing has not been a huge part of my income stream generally. But I would say I am waiting as of yet for the performance opportunity or for the business opportunity that surprises me with how lucrative it is.
Okay.
I would say though that I feel well compensated as a performer. I don't want to create an impression that I was totally starving artist. But yeah, I've yet to be like, well, this is just a bunch of money that popped off. I mean, I feel really lucky for the Hamilton Mixtape thing to say again, like those residuals, which are sometimes called like mailbox money. You already did the thing and it keeps low-key paying off. Also though, maybe a little bit of like choral arrangement, which I've only done a little bit of. That pays a tiny bit, but it pays a tiny bit for a long time.
Sure. Sure. Was there anything that, like maybe your younger self would have considered like selling out that now you're all about?
Yes. I all the time try to imagine the dressing down that I might receive if I had to report to the boss of me at 17. Like, what would she think? Yeah.
What would be the biggest example of that sellout?
Yeah, I think, okay, so even like what is brand partnerships? Man, I try to be careful, So like Googling their practices, if it's a big brand. But also like, what does that mean? How good does a company have to be before I say yes? How bad do they have to be before I say no? Like, I got offered like a chocolate thing. I love chocolate. But also I think chocolate runs on like slave labor. So I didn't do the chocolate thing, but I didn't stop eating chocolate. So I'm entirely full of it. But also I think there was one like corporate consulting gig that I did where I got there and I was like, I am absolutely a garbage person right now. And then I think like being mindful of, greenwashing, like when a company does a sustainability and environment.
Oh, yes, I know what you're saying.
I don't know what the color would be for art, but I think it's a thing. Like, hey, we're going to launder our reputation by having a creative come and talk about spark, authenticity, drive, grit, passion-driven life, which doesn't really change the company anyway. And you just sort of like entertain people for the course of a luncheon on a Thursday. So I try to be mindful too about what I'm selling. Am I selling a good speech? Yeah, I'm really good at speaking. But I don't want to sell a little piece of my reputation off that I've worked really hard to try to build,
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's murky waters. I mean, anytime you get into sort of moral conversations and you start looking at the big picture of like, how good does a company need to be? That's tough to answer if you're going to look at that honestly. Anybody operating in sort of a capitalist society has some moral ambiguity.
Yeah. And I think particularly, to be totally frank, I think anytime the paycheck is big enough to really consider it, it's hard to offer. I think with the like, the few collabs that you mentioned, like one of them was like, we're a vegan, locally woman-owned lipstick company. So it sounds cool to say Dessa has a lipstick. It was like, I got to hand pour the lipstick into an old like metal mold. So this isn't like a big money thing.
Right.
For the bourbon, they're locally owned, organic in southern Minnesota, trying, with reintroduce ancient grains, Chichikali. Again, so it looks cool. And I loved it. And that was satisfying, but it wasn't like, if I paired with Maker's Mark or something, now you're talking money. And with that comes, I think, moral complexity.
Yeah. I don't know how you would really get away from that. Anybody that's going to be offering a significant amount of money probably comes with moral complexity.
Also, I don't have an answer for this. So I'm sort of just like calling my own self out. But I hate the idea of like making music out of plastic. That's really rough too. That sucks. And also, so much about, I think I've been a little bit later to like really look at how much my career is tough on environmental stuff. It was easier in the beginning to be like, yeah, but I'm offering so much socially. Dude, like a musician's life runs on like airfare. It's just mostly gasoline.
Totally.
And that sucks. I don't know how to solve that problem, but I think about it a lot more.
I suppose there's always some sort of balance or scale, you know. You don't get to just forever put out the good thing. It's just too idealistic. I think that there is a little bit of a problem amongst people thinking about just convincing themselves that, oh, it can always be perfect. It can't.
Like, what are the what are the costs?
Yes,
and
there are trade-offs to everything. There's trade-offs to every comfort that we enjoy.
This is good to every comfort. And so sometimes, yes, I dig that. And part of me in my best heart is sometimes like, hey, occasionally you need to start forfeiting more comfort. Not every time. There's always a cost and a trade-off. But every gig that I want to do, no matter what the routing, I don't know, maybe at some point I should be thinking harder about that. But I admit, it's hard for me. I don't factor in plane rides as part of like the damage that I'm doing to the world. And it is.
But that's kind of what I mean. I think if everything has to be accounted for, it's a little bit miserable.
And you could spend your entire life accounting. I get that.
I think you just loosely try to do more good than you're doing harm, and that'll be okay.
But I think, okay, so Peter Singer is this philosopher who is utilitarian. He's very like math oriented. You could spend the rest of your life accounting for like the goods and the ills that you've authored in the world. But I do think that he makes some rough arguments like, hey, you just don't need an endless amount of money, and earning above what makes you comfortable, your family comfortable, makes you feel secure, provides you a decent standard of life. You get to take a vacation. At some point, you should be like giving away a bunch of that. And it may be that I just ran into that idea at the right time, but that has been a factor that I think about since I was 18 years old. Peter Singer, like the ghost of Peter Singer, kind of hovering over my right shoulder and whispering into both ears. So to me, yeah, you spend your whole life doing math, but that's not a reason not to occasionally take out the calculator.
Good point. What sparked your interest in like the science, behavioral stuff, between the podcast, TED Talks? Like, where did all that come from?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I feel like I can fabricate a good like post hoc answer, but I don't totally know. It's like trying to like, why is your favorite color your favorite color? You could probably remember some toy that, was that particular shade of crimson, but I think I've just always been really interested in it, like how humans work, how we tick. I'm very like even on vacation, I'm less likely to go to like a beautiful vista than I am to a cool human city. Humans are endlessly fascinating to me, and the way that their emotions and their connections work, both in art and in science.
Mm-hmm. Deeply Human, the podcast. Yeah. Did that change how you think about how you create?
That's not what I thought you were going to say. Yeah, a little bit. To my discredit, I regret some moments of my collaboration there. I think I was tough to work with on a couple of occasions in a way that at the moment, I felt like I was righteously standing up for what I believed was best for the project. I also wasn't used to British culture, and I misunderstood some stuff pretty bad. Oh. Clever is a word that could be used to mean good or bad, it turns out. And I wish I had been more graceful, even if I was going to still advocate for the ideas I thought. Also, like, I was around people who were better educated than I was. That doesn't mean they're smarter, but they really have a grasp. They work for the BBC and the World Service. Like, they have a better grasp of world history than I did. And I think I had opportunities to be a little more humble than I know that I had opportunities to be more humble than I was, and I wish I'd been that way. That said, also, it was like a growing experience. It was the first time in years that I worked with a team that I didn't pick. So to learn to work with collaborators that are assigned, which is a really different task than being drawn towards a shared vision and working together to achieve it.
Yeah, because there's like inspiration or natural chemistry usually when those kind of partnerships kick off versus, oh, we have to do this together.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was like, okay, these muscles have atrophied. I got to remember how to do this.
Sure. All right. Well, I know that time is limited, so I want to just throw a couple of random questions out just to see what happens. Is there a recent mistake that you've learned from that you would like to share?
I don't know how to do this without throwing anybody under yes. So I've worked with some people across cultures who come from really different places than I do. And I was greeted with a lot of grace. There's this choir from ensemble from South Africa. There's some great voices and great instrumentalists. It's called 2911.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an atheist. I generally don't work with religious groups. They're a religious group, and to me, best of breed. I've learned so much from them. As far as mistakes, I think I was like popping off about stuff that could happen. Maybe we could go here. Maybe, I wonder if I could get us a gig in New York. And I was just sort of spouting ideas, and nobody checked me on it, but I could see on the face of one of my collaborators that it was just like, I was being careless. I later went to him and I said, hey, I think maybe it's the case that I've been casually throwing ideas at the wall and then not following through in the way that I should. And I just want to say, I won't do that anymore. I will bring you ideas only when I'm willing to work for them or have already worked on them, so it can be reasonably assured of some, prospect for success. And so I don't know if that sounds, like a huge mistake or not, but I realized that I wasn't being sensitive to how my words were being received. I think also, I don't know how to say this well and I feel embarrassed, but like just by virtue of being American, I'm rich. And when you work with cultures outside of the US, whether that's being on tour in Eastern Czech Republic, and asking. I remember being with my tour mates, how expensive is your rent? And we couldn't do the math fast enough with the currency rate.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were listing everything in our lives about how many vinyl records it costs. It's like, okay, my groceries are maybe 4 vinyl records, I would say, for a week. And, and realizing like this band, so fun, so cool, husband and wife at the time. And they sang in Czech, knowing that meant that really limited the scope of their professional careers forever. And that when we went to Eastern Czech Republic, people were like, they are fucking singing in Czech. Like, the heart bloom, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Talk about calendar moment. They made some math decisions about like what their lives were going to be. And so I think for me, very often I feel not like scolded, but I feel most humbled when I see an artist make a decision that was better than, or that took a bigger cost than any decision that I've made. I want to be more like that. Yeah.
Yeah. If you couldn't write or perform for a year, what would you do?
Like couldn't write at all?
Yeah.
This sounds so dark, but I'm not sure I don't know. I think we'd be in pretty tough shape.
Okay.
I think we would be doing, some friends would be doing some pretty serious wellness checks. For me, I've been a verbal person. That's my way into the world is words. I know it's not for everybody. Dancers, I'm sure, see it all different. But, I've been pretty open about like mental health stuff in the beginning of my memoir. And, I did just a few days on the mental ward at Regents on where suicide watch is mandatory. And yeah, I took medicine that for a while made it really hard to word find. And I just remember thinking, I don't know if I want to re-up on this. The cost benefits aren't looking very good here. So yeah, language is clutch for me.
What's something that you thought about success or your career 10 years ago that you no longer find true?
I wanted to like be on a late show. I don't know. I really did. I really wanted that. Those markers externally of success that are really highly visible, I wanted that. I wanted, and I still want it. I don't want it as much because I've tried as hard as I can, and I don't know how to do it. So I hate when I hear artists talking about like, hey, define your own success. And then it sounds like all they're doing is talking themselves down into like, this could be success, right? This might be happening. So I'm partly aware that I don't want to like sanctify settling.
Sure.
And at the same time, maybe my efforts are better spent elsewhere. If I can't get those things that I want, like I'm not a cool kid in the national,
Yeah.
and bless them, a couple of like, press people have looked at me and been like, hey, Dessa, you do nice stuff. You're not cool. I was like, I know. So where is my time and effort best spent? Like, I'm not gonna stay up all night and spend 10 years trying to get on late night. I don't care that much. I will stay up all night and spend 10 years trying to make a beautiful book, because that's its own reward. Whereas that late night appearance, that's just a signifier, right? That's just proxy for success. So to me, anyway, at this point in time in my career, I'm trying to really focus on like, hey, what is the primary success? Is beautiful art and getting to share it, and stuff that you really know you believe in, that you would stand behind. That has to be part of your accounting too, about what it means to be an artist.
What's up next? What do you want to share with people that are interested?
I've got like 2 big shows for me coming up with the Minnesota Orchestra in November. Those are
Very
always
cool.
those are always the productions of the year for me. You know, it's big, a bunch of people.
That's about as big as it gets.
Yeah. Shout out to Andy Thompson, who does the orchestration there. And then, I've got some new music coming out too. So if you're
So for people that want to check it out, where should they go?
I am at Dessa on Instagram, Dessa. And then my website is dessawander.com.
We'll definitely include those links in the show notes, and look forward to checking out the shows and the new music and everything that comes out in the future. I mean, everything you've done is super impressive. I loved this conversation. Thank you for your time.
Me too.
Before we go, though, I always ask people to share a little secret or something like that. And one twist that I've been putting on it recently, just to mix it up for myself more than anything, is what's a piece of advice you'd like to pass along that you struggle to do yourself?
Oh, God. Social media, yeah.
So I've asked it twice, and it's the same answer each time.
Sorry. God, I think it makes my life worse. I think it makes me crazy. I think it brings to the fore the vainest, most self-centered aspects of my personality. Those that in any other format, I would be working hardest to tamp down. How about that?
I agree, and I don't know how to. It's a conversation we need to have, because it's like we've created this monster that everybody now has to do this thing, and it's so important to your career and your livelihood, and it's terrible.
It's so bad.
It is. I mean, I see some people do it really well.
But also, I'd be curious if you were to ask them, like, hey, are you concerned at all? Is this also doing anything that bothers you? I think a lot of them, at least 5 years into that, would say,
exactly. Because I think it's usually really, there's been some people that I followed that genuinely seem to be enjoying it.
Okay.
It's doing well, all of that. But it's also like, but how sustainable can that be forever and ever and ever? Like, at some point, even if it is going well, then you have to start worrying about, like, this is a platform I don't own, and there's all these problems.
And even if it's going well, and then something really tough happens in your personal life, whether it's, hey, your brother gets arrested for a DUI, or you had a divorce and you might want a little time off, right? When you hit those road bumps and there isn't, like a natural do not disturb privacy setting on these things.
Yeah.
How does that play? How does that hit?
Or even I think about, I just took this trip, and it was great. And I didn't post a thing about it, because I'm also like, I'm generally a more private person. What I post is always business. I generally don't share my personal life. But here it's like, oh, this is great. It'd be pictures, whatever. But I also just feel like, but how does that make other people feel?
Totally.
That's for me. It's just me. It's like showing off in a way,
Totally. It's just flexing.
Yeah. And as much as that might make me feel good, I do think about but that's not, no one else needs to see that today, this morning. Like, sure, I have 4 or 5 friends and my parents and whatever that would really love to see the photos genuinely, and everybody else.
Okay, so here's something that I'll call myself out in. I used to try to live roughly by a rule that was like, hey, if you're going to share a win, and a lot of times, for someone fronting their own project, so many of those wins are like self-celebratory. It's not just, I got to see this beautiful mountain. It's like, look at beautiful me. And so if you're going to share a really glammed up photo, share a busted one too, so that it's just a little bit more representative of a human life, because I do think that there is on trend. Hey, here's a panorama, endless view of the curated, scripted, most wonderful parts of everybody's life on your phone. And then here's you in your pajamas low-key hungover, waiting to put your cat down or whatever the hell. And so
Yeah.
it does just create an impression of constant deficit. I'm fucking up, right? Or I'm not thin enough, or I'm not going to the rad mimosa brunches that everybody else seems to be going to. Like, it creates this weirdo isolation of hyper-sharing, and I don't like participating in that. But I admit that's gotten harder as I've gotten older. It's harder for me to let my vanity go as we get older and your looks leave generally. Like, I'm having a harder time living that rule, but I really want to. It's important to me.
Yeah, and yet we all agree, that we have to do it. We just have to find some sort of balance, because if you decide not to participate, I don't know.
Then what?
Yeah,
You're just on the abandoned on the side of the road of progress.
From an artist standpoint, it's like you don't exist.
I saw this really cool, I think it was an undergraduate study that was like, hey, a researcher was trying to assess the value in this undergraduate community of social media. So the question was, how much would I have to pay you to delete the social platforms from your phone? Okay. Everybody listed their price. And whatever, let's just say $50 for a month to delete them all, $50. Yeah, I really want to keep them. But then it was, okay, what about if everybody deleted it? And they go, oh no, I would pay. If everybody deleted it for a month? Oh yeah, I would pay $35 if I could get everybody in my community to delete it.
Oh,
so
wow.
It is this horrible sort of, collective flywheel in a direction that nobody wants to
I have one more question, just because this is really interesting. Do you see a post, like, what happens after this? Do we get past this?
I gotta say, this isn't sunny, but my, past few days of my free time have been researching AI. So do we get past it because we're no longer
Relevant
in the fly?
Yeah.
Because I am not of the class of music. I'm not a member of the group of musicians who would say, you know what? AI is never going to be as good at writing a song as me. I think it will. I think there will be a Dessa song that's better than any Dessa song I could write.
I would go on for, I know it will. We're just going to deny it. There might be people that deny it, but it already is writing music that is as good as anything.
Last night I asked, when ChatGPT first came out, okay. Yesterday it was like, here's the MIDI. So when ChatGPT first came out, it was like, here's what Dessa would write. And I was like, this is kind of garbage. And then was bummed because I posted a snapshot of it on my Instagram. People were like, awesome. And I was like, fuck, not awesome. This is garbage. You can't say, what does that mean that you like me then? But yesterday, just to see how the progress had been in those few months, right? It was like, okay, here's the MIDI mock-up that I can just upload into the Pro Tools or into Logic or whatever to hear the new song that it took 15 seconds to write. A friend of mine, Curtis Sittenfeld, shout out, she's a fantastic writer in the Twin Cities. She wrote a piece for the New York Times, a short story that she wrote, 2 pages, something like that. Short story that AI wrote. Hers is still better. It took 17 seconds for the AI program to write in the voice of Curtis Sittenfeld, a star like her. There's going to be the best song in my style isn't going to be one that I write, I think, in my lifetime.
Yeah.
On that note, lovely conversation.
Well, I will say that as much as I think that there's reason to be worried, obviously, about how that affects everything, it's just impossible to know what's going to come out of it in terms of the opportunity and the cool things that we're going to use to create that with.
Agreed. I do agree.
I think that that's unknown and exciting. And for me, if I wasn't trying to do it for a living, I'd be very excited about it.
That's not what I thought you were going to say. Okay.
Because I think the tool is incredible. And I think the biggest worry for me is not about art and about expression and about creating cool things. In fact, I think that's going to get better.
Yes.
I think that your imagination is going to become just incredible what you can make with stuff now. And that's exciting. The thing that's not exciting is, but what does that mean for my wallet?
Pocket? Oh, see, I end up thinking a more philosophical question. So, like, the feeling that we have when everyone was concerned that Beyonce lip-synced the anthem. I think we have a fundamental concern with what is real. Even if, dude, she sang it earlier that day. It's Beyonce or whatever, right? Like, it's her voice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it didn't feel, I don't know, even if it's indetectably different. Just knowing that she didn't sing it in real time just doesn't feel. I think that we're gonna like start grappling with some pretty serious like philosophical values about what art is. In the same way that when we go to live performances, part of why we like going is because the opportunity for failure is there. It's not about absolute technical perfection, which I think AI can help us with. Wow, technical, nobody missed a note.
Yep.
You know, amazing range and everything else. But I think actually it's like having a human connection is part of what draws us to art. And when the entity on the other end of the line isn't human, I think we might find that we feel differently about it.
Well, particularly for music, I think. But I don't think that matters for general storytelling.
No?
No, because movies. I mean, look at movies. Like, we don't need it to be real.
What about a memoir? Oh, yes, that's true.
You know, there's just different genres. You watch fantasy, you watch science fiction, you watch action and all these kind of crazy, unrealistic things, and we love them, and we just know what we're getting into. We know that this is meant to be that way.
Yes,
and then we also go and get a documentary, and we hope that this is being portrayed accurately, right? Because it's a documentary. It's supposed to be based on a true story.
There's a contract.
There's a contract. Yeah. With music, there's just, for some reason, with that genre, people just generally always think it's supposed to be a documentary. And it's not. It doesn't need to be. Not all music needs to be your life story.
Agreed. But I think a lot of times, even if you have a singer sing something, I think the idea that someone's felt the way that I feel is part of listening to a sad song.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, and companionship, even in an emotional state. But I hear what you're saying about movies, particularly.
But it doesn't have to be the singer that wrote it.
That's what I mean too. We were comfortable. Even if we know the voice delivering the song wasn't the one who wrote it, we have this feeling that there's companionship, there's companionability.
Yes.
And maybe that's not as important for everybody, but I think that's part of this kind of unwritten contract that's made when we listen to music. But you know what? I don't feel the same way for like the music that underscores the safety video that I just watched on Delta on the way in.
Right. I do think that the importance of live performance will increase. I think that will be...
God, it feels like it's so already. Do it. And will we get human? Does it matter if the performers are human?
Well, that I don't know. I think to some people it will.
Yeah.
But not to everybody.
I want to stop talking.
Well, not to end it on some sort of depressing note, because I do think that if you can take off the concept of money from things, it's easier to be excited about it all.
I hear that. Yeah.
I do. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Even when we remove the concept of money, don't you feel like a little bit apprehensive about people who are finding long-term companionship with chatbots?
Oh, yeah. Apprehensive would be a good word for it, yes. But I just don't know what it means yet. I mean, it's too early.
Fair. That's totally fair.
And I don't want to be, like this is all going to be terrible. Get off my lawn! Everything about AI is garbage. Because I think that's like, well, that's not helpful.
I think also it might be like, hey, my value set is challenged by AI. And we'll find a new value set develops.
100%. And I bet there's probably going to be some like 19-year-old or whatever that listens to this podcast and about our conversation about social media that just doesn't agree necessarily.
Totally.
Because it's not how they grew up with it. They have 100%. A different feeling about it, and it's like it might just be an unfair way that we're looking at it through the lens of like we were also like young adults when it happened.
And we are also... this is a good point. We have also itemized in such detail the costs without the benefits. Like, dude, I can listen to music around the planet.
We take for granted the comfort.
And I should say, I don't know. So I'm aware of that, and I don't say it out loud as often as I should. Like, I was listening to music from South Africa, from Bulgaria, instantaneous, and also like the fact that I get to go to the Czech Republic is because of the internet.
Yeah. We've had such an increase in our standard of living and comfort and the things that are available to us in terms of media that we just blow that off now.
I agree.
It has become like, of course we should be entertained every second of our lives.
Yeah.
And that is so, can you imagine the people that lived without television?
Right. I'm not going to write down how to get here. I have even that, like totally. the benefit.
The comfort and the benefits we just really do take for granted. And AI is going to offer a whole lot more of that. in a lot of ways, but it's going to change a lot of things too. So I don't know. I just trying to stay open-minded about it.
Smart.
But also be realistic about it. I think if you have a job that's like going to be impacted by it, you should start thinking ahead.
And I think most people who have jobs do have a job that's going to be impacted by it. I would say,
Yes, there probably isn't something that won't be touched by it.
Yeah,
absolutely. But okay, I know I've kept you too long. Thank you so much, Dessa. I appreciate you so much. For everybody listening, thanks for tuning in. If you liked this, please share it with a friend that might get something out of it, and we'll see you at the next one.